Okay, so I have a well-being theory. This is what I theorize, right? Okay, so fourth house, since it represents nest egg, retirement fund, savings account, yet people in the real estate industry are asking me to fork over a substantial amount of money, 40% of your income to be exact, so you're not a burden on your city. They want me to fork this over every month. My argument is this: how about I put it in my savings account and save it? How about I do that every month? Whatever the rent costs, how about I put it in my savings account, right? Now, you may say, well, that's not fair because of the individualistic society and the individual's freedom and their right to earn wealth, yada, 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 in a free country. Totally would get into something like that in a different video where I could be more technical, more research based instead of flying off the hip and just using raw emotion of how I feel about that. Because it's really not about how I feel, it's the knowledge that I possess on that type of terminology in that industry. But hear me out. And I feel that this is a fair concept. If I have the money in my account, let's say, right, and I choose to hold on to it, the worst case scenario is just like eventually civil court, or, they're going to pull you into the courthouse, right? Perhaps. And they're going to say, well, as a tenant, you do owe this, yada, 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 yada. And you could be like, I'm just saying theory, right? You could be like, yo, Your Honor, I got the money, I got it in my account. I just trust me more than I trust them. I trust me more than I trust you, more than I trust the landlord, more than I trust the neighborhood, etc., etc. So you want bank statements? I can show you bank statements right now, the money in the account. And my reason for theorizing this way is to support well-being. The well-being theory is just like, because I know the moon and I know the monetary value that is placed on it, right? So basically what I'm saying without saying it is my security will remain secure because I have the money, right? As soon as I fork that money over to the landlord, or as soon as you fork that money over to the landlord for the month, what's going to happen? You're going to get in one of those moods again. You're going to get in one of those irritable moods that the moon embodies, right? It's like Monday going to work. You heard about the statistics of people who have caught heart attacks or strokes on Sundays, Sunday nights, or Monday mornings because of why? The pressure put on them that the weekend is over and now they have to go back into the work week on Monday, right? And it's solely or predominantly because you have to at least meet that rent or mortgage quota, right? And this is not everybody, of course. If it doesn't apply, let it fly. You know what I mean? But you understand the point that I'm making. I'm theorizing this for the purpose of well-being. If I got the money and I'm sitting on it, I'm more secure. I'm more secure, confident, excuse me, and comfortable in my actions in the upcoming month because I don't owe anything. However, at the same time, I'm not. I don't feel a lack. Right? There's no void here. I have everything that I'm supposed to have. At least when it comes to that real estate. You understand what I'm saying? Now, why would a landlord want to evict a person who moves like that? Right? You would say it's probably for greed or something like that. You know what I mean? But let's again, if we go back to the cost of goods sold and we go back to being timeless, it's like, come on, y'all built this building for how much and how long it's been up? Let's say the building been up for, or the house been up since 1934. They done got that money times over again. You understand what I'm saying? As many people and switch the house or whatever the case may be, or maybe just one house, one family lived there, pass it down to their kids. They done got that money. And if we're thinking in a timeless frame of mind, you're not even thinking about the labor anymore. You understand what I'm saying? Now, what if even more? Let me just leave it right there. I don't want to track it out. You understand what I'm saying? And I'm not trying to say, be irresponsible and not pay people what they should be paid. I'm saying reconstruct the design or look at it from a true point of view to where this time constraint thing that is put forced onto people is what causes these mood disorders or this irritability or this what do you call that? It's like premature activity, premature actions, It's like the saying goes, action speaks louder than words. And it's just like, that's a double entendre. That's a double saying. The action being taken to do things yeah, it speaks loud, but it could be a negative factor as well. I'm gonna get to that in a little bit, but that's what I'm theorizing. To support well-being, you should sit on it. Now, if a landlord doesn't like a person being responsible, right? Because it's fourth house logistics, right? Supposed to be saving money. And more than 65 to 69% of Americans don't have $1,000 in their savings account. That says a lot because that means that the fourth house is being ignored, it's being starved. And when you're dealing with the moon, you're talking about the subconscious mind. This is where they speak about mental illness. That's why they be saying Pisces is crazy and stuff like that. Moon rules over the subconscious mind. Subconscious mind is ruled by the 12th house. 12th house rules over Pisces. Maybe connecting the dots here. And this is something very forces that doctrine. It's not natural. Everyone's not the same, and this time, guys, is what is putting, excuse me, archetypes into one box that should not be there. Okay, so I say that to say this as well. Now, banks, they usually make loans to other people in your community who would want to like open up a business or go get a loan for a car so they can go maybe to the next town over to get work and stuff like that, right? Now, there's a lot of people who hold wealth in the banks, or they won't hold it in the banks because they don't want that to even occur, right? But on the other hand, now look, if you got some citizens, some residents who are putting their money in the nest egg in the savings account in the bank, then the bank is going to be giving loans to people. And I know it's not even a theoretically correct, excuse me, concept to loan your money out to someone else when you did not. That's not what you gave them permission to do. They do it anyway, though. You know what I'm saying? They do it anyway, and there's a certain amount that's insured, so you connect the dots and tell yourself how much money you should keep in the bank if you were to take that route in comparison to how much you should not. Once it exceeds that certain amount, you shouldn't put no more money in it. I would recommend anyway. Or put your money in different types of financial vehicles. So, and this is for the point of well-being. So what do I mean by different archetypes being slammed inside of the same box, which is not correct? There's something abnormal about that, and it's driven, it's forced. I'm going to be technical about this. I'm not going to be coming out of raw emotion because of my likes and my dislikes. It's analytics and it's research, right? So if we look at somebody with a high degree Mars in comparison to someone with a low degree Mars, and they work in the same work environment, right? So if you know anything about the individualistic society and the capitalistic society, the CEO is usually appointed by, and not appointed by a board of directors. However, there will be a board of directors on most corporations, and there will be a CEO. Now, the CEO is the person who takes charge. Oh, another double entendre saying that I want to bring forth is it costs to be the boss. It costs to be the boss, right? Now, I got to make a mental note of this to make sure that I come back to it. So I'm slowing down a bit. It costs to be the boss. So when we talk about moon logistics and the savings account for the fourth house, right? This is how you can test the universe to find out who is your tribe. And when I say your tribe, I mean your family. It may not always be relatives, and for the most part, it should be. However, the cookie doesn't always crumble that way. So can people who are not relatives be your family? Yes, they can be. And this is how you know that they can qualify, right? You can test the universe by when having conversations with people who want to cut costs, who like to cut costs, who would present that type of ideology to you and not be embarrassed. Now, if they do the opposite, if their ego is involved and they say, man, look, we got to have the best. We got to have the quality meats. We got to have the quality porks. We got to have, this, that, and the third. And they perhaps might not even have the experience in the field of the idea that you guys are creating together. That's a red flag. That's something for you to step back and reflect on and say, I wonder why they want to spend so much and they're not even experienced in this field like that. Like, you might have more experience than they do. So there's something to be mindful of. And you got to say, hey, this person will break the bank when not even having the experience and the knowledge to do what it is that we're set out to do. So you would know that this is not a person that you should consider family, because they're not going to be in it for the long run. They're not thinking long term. They're thinking right now, in the moment, instant gratification. This is high Mars energy, is the point that I'm making. And this is why CEOs are more of the Mars archetype, the more of the fiery archetype at that. But we're going to say more Mars so that we don't peg it to a sign and you take this personal. I don't want you to take this personal. It's going to be personal enough because Mars is a personal planet and it's about the self, right? So you got to understand the CEO is paid how astronomically more than the workforce and the people that come down in the pyramid, which is relative to Capricorn climbing the top of the mountain and stuff like that. And Mars is exalted in the sign of Capricorn, but you see why now. Because that person who's going to take that position and boss people around and pop up on them and run down on them and say, yo, you need to be doing this, but grab a broom or sweep something. Oh, but I did all my work. It doesn't matter. Do something. You see the boss, you see me right here. Do something or I'll fire you. Like, that energy is high Mars energy, and it's no disrespect to people who are watching this that behave that way. I'm just telling you what it is, you know. In an environment such as that, you'll get away with it probably every time, right? They're not going to side or they're not going to appease the worker bee when the CEO is driving this authority, because the force is what accelerates the action, which accelerates the, I would say, the kickbacks for the incentives that comes from hirees. I wouldn't even necessarily say profits, because all businesses are not profitable like that. Even when they're getting, or they have a longevity, like a long run being in business, it could be because of the debt financing that's keeping them afloat, which a lot of companies have. When the pandemic hit, you see the list of companies that actually went bankrupt because that force was no longer applied and those debts had piled up so high. And then when everything stopped, they weren't able to get no revenue to accommodate that debt that they had taken on. You understand what I'm saying? So it's a great example of what I'm speaking about right now, of when that occurred. So it's like when this archetype is driving and driving and forcing, like you may have a lower Mars degree individual in this work environment as well, who may pump the brakes when you tell them to do this and snap your fingers around at them. They might not, it won't register with them, it won't resonate. They might just get fired, and they might just be okay with that because they can feel instinctually that there's something incorrect about that for them. Now, the person with the high Mars, they probably have no idea that they're doing something wrong, because they've been given this position, they've been given all of this money. They probably went out and got a big flat somewhere, they got a big car, they got a big girl. Well, you know, could be big, who knows, you know what I'm saying? But you get what I'm saying, right? Like, they're powerful and they're using that high degree Mars energy because it's innately given to them by the universe. Now, they could be doing anything else. They could be lifting weights. They could be an Olympic swimmer, right? They could be mountain climbing somewhere, utilizing that energy, doing something else, and they could be making revenue from it. However, they chose to be in this position that they were placed in. And some Mars energy is creation, right? So it's about entrepreneurship and stuff like that. They might have placed themselves in that position, right? That too. But it's just like the power is given to them by allowing them to behave in that type of manner. You understand what I'm saying? If everyone was to jump ship and leave the workplace, that power doesn't no longer exist. You know what I'm saying? So I say that to say this, like, it costs to be the boss, right? So people may associate this doctrine with the devil a lot, and they do. I've heard it in discussions, right? And it's like this. When you think about it, like I said, Mars is exalted in Capricorn, so you're just like, oh, okay, yeah, they go the devil right there, Capricorn, right? But when you look at Capricorn's ruling planet, which is Saturn, Saturn does not operate the same way. Saturn operates on restraint, okay, which is more, I wouldn't say completely timeless, but it's taken away more time, right? Because Saturn takes 29 years to orbit. Mars, on the other hand, a year and change. So you see there's a huge difference there. But Mars is exalted in the Capricorn space because it's just like, oh, look at them go. Yeah, keep going, keep going. Because if you can get these people to be busy and not think, it really helps the people who's really running the world or really running things behind the scenes, who is more of a collectivist society. And it's a real mirage because from the outside looking in, if you don't look with a careful eye, you would suspect that the people taking all of the action, who are paid a lot, remember their liability too. It costs to be the boss. Yeah, it costs money to boss people around. You know why? Because who's really going to sit there and listen to people boss them around? Like, yo, do this, do that, do that, do it by 3 o'clock or else. Like, who's really going to do that? And I know I'm sounding sarcastic because look at how many people are actually doing that, right? And it's like some hypnotism that goes on that gets people under this spell for it to be done at such a large extent. But it's like in all actuality, especially in these times, the breakaway society that is forming is just like, what? Where's my walking papers? You gotta listen to you. Who do you think you are? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm out of here. And their thing is, oh, well, somebody else will replace you. The turnover rate gets high, the retention rate is low. And it's like, why would corporations set themselves up to be in a low star, should I say, situation like that? Right? But when you think about it from a sense of well-being, it's just like, well, it probably is better them than me because my well-being is on the line. If it's incorrect, like I said, with that person with the lower degree Mars energy, if it doesn't sit right with them instinctually, their moon instincts kicks in and say, oh, I better get out of here before I snap, right? Might tear the cameras down off the walls and rag somebody in here. So I'm just remove myself from the situation because I see who's in control of the environment. And again, I want to bring this to the collectivists because it's collectivists behind the scenes who are running these types of operations. It's like the board of directors. A CEO could take a seat if the board of directors, which is a collectivist group inside the corporation, decides to make them take a seat. Say, oh, you're too reckless. Yeah, you was bossing people around for the last 5 years, but guess what? We owe such and such and such and such and such. We didn't make the quota for the last 3 quarters, so you either step down or we're going to replace you ourselves. Just like, what? I think WeWork is a good example to use for that. If you haven't seen the film on what is that, Apple, I recommend you go watch that. Beautiful example. It teach you a whole lot, that movie. So I bring that back to the real estate thing, right? Because it's like, okay, if you got a lower degree Mars energy and to the banking situation, it's just like you would want to keep retention low. You would want to keep retention high, and the turnover rate low in your community. So I don't know about y'all, right? And this is a good example that I can make an analogy. If you lived in apartments before, like I recall, I moved around a lot, so I was able to be in different apartments and stuff like that. And I always notice how I get like mail from like 5, 6, 7 different people in my mailbox, and still like years later, it still be occurring like that. And I just be like, I used to always feel awkward and a little bit uneasy from seeing that because I'm like, man, how many people lived in this apartment? Like in this amount of time span, like people just be moving in places and then be uprooted and then moving out. And it's like the system doesn't care because of this force driven by some powered up egotistical maniac to some degree, right? There's got to be some level of mania here to be able to do like this and order people around. But that is what makes this type of thing happen, to where so many different people could live in an apartment within a short time span. It's just like, man, people are uprooted because of this no security. There's no security. There's a lack of security. There's insecurity there, right? Fourth house, logistics. Moon, logistics. Uprooted from family, foundation, domestic life. There's no stability there. You understand what I'm saying? So now when you're thinking about community and you're thinking about powerful community, there's really that it lacks power. Your community will lack power if people continue to come and go, right? Uprooted from the community. These are strengths. These are pillars of the community with people who have long-lasting stability in their communities. Sure, you could travel and you could have other homes somewhere different, when you work and you build up nest egg, right, and put money in vehicles that work for you, such as compound interest, things of that nature, stuff like that. So y'all follow me so far where I'm going with this, right? I'm not just blabbering. I'm really making these points right now so you can understand the differences between monetary values and how they're pegged to the planets and how it all has to do with times and the orbital cycles of these planets And if you looked at those more like calendars instead of, well, should I say, not even look at them, because of course, if you follow astrology, you're going to look at the planets orbiting as calendars of their own, right? However, when you're subject to the forceful fiat currency, which is Mars currency, and you don't pinpoint it to the point where you say, I got to stop this. I either got to get out this forceful energy's way, or I got to meet it head on with my own force. This is tactical, baby. This is something that you really have to strategize in order to utilize it efficiently for yourself, because it's still going to be about self when it comes, especially when it comes to Mars.